Today, Iran elects a reformist president. France searches for a way forward following a shocking election result, and Ukraine mourns after a Russian strike on a children's hospital. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Tuesday the 9th of July, 2024. Our main story today is after an unexpectedly competitive election, Iran's Masoud Pezeshkian's surprise victory in a runoff on Friday has given Iran its first reformist president in 2 decades, after Pezeshkian defeated hardliner Saeed Jalili with 53.7% of the vote. Despite initial doubt over whether Pezeshkian would even be allowed to run by the Ayatollahs, Pezeshkian was given the green light, and subsequently the Iranian reformist camp came out behind him in full force. Pezeshkian's candidacy was backed by major reformist groups, and most notably was backed by both former reformist President Mohammad Khatami and moderate former President Hassan Rouhani, as well as Mohammad Javad Zarif, a former foreign minister who's today one of Iran's most high-profile politicians. Now, Pezeshkian is not a radical reformer, unlike traditional reformists. He hasn't said anything about making Iran more democratic or changing the balance of power within the republic, and he's actually signalled that he would be fundamentally loyal to Khomeini, although he couldn't really say anything else in the current political climate. Nevertheless, his policy platform would still be radically different from that of his predecessor. He said that he'd stop requiring Iranian women to wear the hijab, arguing that it's not required by Islamic law and impossible to enforce anyway. He's also said he would try to improve relations with the West and restart negotiations on the nuclear deal with the West to get sanctions lifted and help resurrect Iran's struggling economy. However, while many celebrated Pezeshkian's victory, millions of Iranians have lost faith in any of their leaders, reformist or hardline. Many Iranians now see elections as a moment for silent protest, refusing to deliver the facade of legitimacy the regime seeks through the ballot box. However, voter turnout of the runoff reached 49.8%, beating the first round's record low of 40% amid calls for a boycott from opponents of the clerical establishment. Analysts, however, share the Iranian electorate's concerns and also remain sceptical about Pezeshkian's ability to enact meaningful change within an establishment dominated by ultra-conservatives. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel like Louis Tojo, then consider joining the new TLDR membership programme for just $1.99. France's political future remained uncertain, days after the pan-left-wing New Popular Front alliance won a shock victory at the country's legislative elections. The vote on Sunday, which was the second and final round, saw the New Popular Front win 180 seats, coming in first place, but falling well short of a majority in the 577-seat chamber. President Macron's centrist Ensemble alliance fell to second place with 159 seats, while Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally failed to secure the win that most had been expecting, coming only third with 142 seats. For more on the election results, check out our recent TLDR EU video. Anyway, while the hung parliament didn't bring the far right to power, which President Macron can celebrate, his alliance still lost a lot of seats and fell to second. Macron's Prime Minister Gabriel Attal offered his resignation, which Macron rejected, saying Attal would stay on for now to ensure the stability of the country, presumably until a new government can be formed. Following their victory, the left, which wants to undo much of Macron's political project, were quick to call on President Macron to give them the chance to form a government, though a lot of consensus building will likely be necessary to form a government with support in the hung parliament. Macron may seek to bring together moderates from the centre-left to centre-right, testing the left's unity by excluding the far-left France Unbowed, who are the biggest party in the New Popular Front. Equally though, Macron faces disunity in his own ranks due to his bold or reckless decision to call a snap election. When offering his resignation, Prime Minister Attal made clear that it was not his decision to call the election and that he disagreed with it. For now, President Macron and his interim government have a lot on their plate already, with the Paris Olympics starting soon and Macron heading to Washington DC this week for a NATO summit. Today, Ukraine's government has declared a day of national mourning after at least 41 civilians were killed in a series of Russian strikes, which destroyed over 100 buildings, including Ukraine's largest children's hospital in Kyiv. It's been described as the worst attack of the war yet. 2 people died when a missile flattened part of the hospital. The strike largely destroyed the Children's Hospital toxicology ward, where patients with severe kidney issues were being treated. Hundreds of rescue workers and volunteers joined the efforts to clear the debris and search for survivors. Officials and emergency staff said it was not immediately clear how many doctors and patients, dead or alive, remained trapped under the rubble. Russia denied targeting the Kyiv hospital, saying it had been hit by fragments of a Ukrainian air defense missile, while Ukraine said it found remnants of a Russian cruise missile. New British Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned attacking innocent children as the most depraved of actions, while the Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani called the missile strike a war crime. US President Joe Biden has called the wave of Russian strikes as a horrific reminder of Russia's brutality. Biden added to his statement that the US will be announcing new measures to strengthen Ukraine's air defences to help protect their cities and civilians. For the first time in 14 years, the UK has a Labour government, after the party won a landslide victory over the ruling Conservatives back on Thursday. But how have Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the Labour Party fared in their first few days in office? One of the first decisions made by Starmer's government was to scrap the Rwanda scheme, a controversial plan set up by the previous government to deport some asylum seekers to Rwanda. The new government also quickly scrapped the de facto ban on building new onshore wind farms, saying that the decision on onshore wind projects should be taken nationally, not locally. Labour also announced further plans to, quote, get Britain building again, as part of its plan to build 1.5 million new homes over the next 5 years. They will reinstate compulsory house building targets for local councils, reform planning rules to make it easier to build houses on less desirable parts of the Green Belt, and more. The first job of the new Prime Minister, though, was to name his cabinet. The vast majority of Starmer's previous shadow cabinet were appointed to their respective roles in cabinet, so there weren't too many surprises there. There were 2 ministerial appointments, though, that did raise eyebrows for different reasons. Business owner and prison reform advocate James Timpson was put in the House of Lords and made Prisons Minister, suggesting the government may take a more progressive approach to prisons and rehabilitation. Meanwhile, ex-Tony Blair-era politician Jackie Smith was appointed to the Department of Education, a move criticised by some because of Smith's implication in the expenses scandal back in 2009. Yesterday, Colombia's Environment Minister, Susana Mahama, announced that the deforestation in the country fell by 36% to a 23-year low in 2023, driven by a decline in environmental destruction in the Amazon region. The government of leftist President Gustavo Petro says it's prioritising the protection of Colombia's environment and has called on rich nations to cancel foreign debt in exchange for conserving areas like the Amazon, whose destruction, scientists say, could worsen global climate change. It's really good news, but we definitely cannot say that the battle is won, Mohammed told journalists in Colombia's capital, Bogota.
Running a profitable online news brand that gives away free content is a little tricky. So recently we launched an online store where you can purchase copies of our magazine, Too Long. The thing is, setting up an e-commerce business is also pretty tricky. But fortunately, when it comes to websites and e-commerce, Skillshare is there to help. With me taking their very useful course, Shopify Essentials for Web Developers, when setting up the store. That's because Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, with thousands of classes led by industry experts across film, illustration, design, freelance, productivity, and more. That means that Skillshare can help take your career, skills, hobbies, passions, or side hustles to the next level. There's hundreds of career-focused classes. That's courses from how to start a business to maximizing your workflow or digital marketing. The best news is that the first 500 people to use our link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial to Skillshare. So get started today.